Hi. The dahlias have been dug up for about a week now. They've been stored nicely in my dry greenhouse. We're now ready to pack them away for winter. So let me show you what I do. And if we haven't met before, I'm Nicola. I'm a home gardener from Shropshire, and I want to encourage anybody to create a cutting garden that is as productive and efficient as possible. So that means creating as many flowers for the minimum amount of time and money. So let's get going. Last year I had a bit of a disaster with my dahlias, and I'm not sure really what the problem was. I did do things completely different, and I changed so many things that I don't know if there was just one thing that caused the problem or whether it was multiple. So I changed where I store them. They were closer to the ground, I'm going to say. They weren't on the ground, but they were definitely quite close to the ground. And I didn't protect them with soil, which I normally do. So I'd seen something on the internet, as you do, and it was they were just boxed up, put somewhere dry, cool and dry, which is what I thought I'd done. In February, I saw again things on the internet, and people were claiming, oh, they've lost their dahlias. And I had because they weren't covered up, I could easily go in and feel them. All seemed well. So I felt kind of smug until mid-March, when I got them out of storage to pot them up, and the majority had turned to mush. So I had a lot fewer dahlias than I was expecting, and that's the result of what we've got now. So I really want to make sure that these dahlias make it through the winter. So I'm going back to what I did previously. There might be a few little tweaks here and there just because of what I've got available. I am going to pack them well. I'm going to store them in the original place where I used to store them, so that should be the same. So everything should be the same. And then I have kept the urchin dahlias, and if you know from my previous videos, which I'll link up here, the urchins were not ones that I were going to store, but would you believe it, the ones that I don't want to keep are the ones that I've got the most tubers of. So I'm going to store those differently to everything else. So I'm going to store them as if I was doing it last year, so no real protection, not covered up, but in the same place. And then at least I rule out location. At the end of the day, it could just simply have been crappy weather for that winter, and that was it. But we don't know. So let's crack on and get started. So here are my dahlias all boxed up. This is how I dug them. So I know that they have been put into the boxes for each different variety. So here we have one of the dahlia tubers. This is a cafe au lait, and as you can see, it is quite large. And there are multiple ways. There's no right or wrong way really to store them. It's just a matter of getting them through the winter. And it will depend on the weather in your area and what storage location you've got. So whilst the person that I copied last year, it worked for them, and it's worked for them year on year. So hence why it's been fine. For me, it didn't work because my storage location was different. So what they need is to be kept cool. They need to be kept cool and dry. So they can cope with a bit of freezing. It's not the freezing that kills them. It's when they thaw out and they get damp and they just then rot, which I think is what happened last year with mine. They got so cool, which is why they were solid in January or February time. But then once things warmed up in March, things weren't so great. So they need to be kept cool and dry with probably as little variability in the temperature as possible. So keeping them in a heated house is not really going to work for them because they'll want to try and grow. It doesn't take much heat for them to want to grow, and they need to rest over winter. So it needs to be cool. So an outbuilding, garage, shed, barn in my case, should be absolutely fine, but you just need to make sure that they don't get hit by too much variability in temperature. Now they need to keep dry, so the stalk, so I've still got the stems here of the dahlia, so this is what the flower shoots grew from, these stalks. They're not neat. There'll be new stalks next year, so these aren't necessary at all to keep from going up. And if you notice, they are hollow inside, so it is a place where they can gather water. So I have stored them upside down to dry them out for now. What I'm going to do is actually cut off these as close as possible to the tuber, so it then becomes a little bit more solid, and we'll take it from there. So let's get on and start sorting them out. So firstly, I will be cutting off the longer stems, so it makes more space and we can get more into a box. Just cut those off. So with that gone, you can see that is actually solid. So hopefully no water can get into the tubers from these stems now. So let me do that for all of them. Okay, they've been done now. So now we need to label. So this is cafe au lait in here. I just want to attach these labels to the plant. Now keeping a bit of stem helps because it gives you something to attach it to. I'm just going to loop it under that tuber there. So we have a label on the tuber. Actually, the only thing that is going to go into that box is cafe au lait, so we should be fine. And what I'm also going to do is, this is a permanent marker. It's one that came with some seed labels and is still working. They don't last long. I'm actually going to write it on the tuber itself. So make a bit, clean it up. Come spring, hopefully I will see. So it's not very clear, hence the labels. But again, as long as I can see one thing in this box, I know the whole lot will be cafe au lait. So I just need to do that for everything. Many people wash their dahlias at this time, so they clear off all of the muck and even go as far as splitting them at this time of year, so storing each thing individually. But I'm not inclined to do that, because each one of these tubers could create a new plant, and it's all about whether you can see the eyes. So if they've got an eye, then you can. So each tuber could generate a plant. However, I'm inclined to not separate them out at this point in time because of the cold, damp weather in here, and I kind of think they'll have a bit more protection in a group rather than individually. I could be wrong, because we could be having safety in numbers, and it could be that if I split them out, even if one dies, it might not all die. But I'm going to leave it till the spring before I split them. And in fact, what I'm going to do next year is actually take the majority of the plants from cuttings, because I have had a bit of virus in them this year. So I'm going to try and make sure that they are virus free by taking the cuttings and then disposing of all these tubers after that. We have to make it through the winter first. Okay, everything is now labelled up and ready to go. So what I have done, as I've done previously, is saved some of the seed tray compost. So it needs to be dry. But this is the remnants of all of the seeds that I've sown and then potted on. So I'm going to tip it so that they're upside down, so that again no moisture can get into the stems. I'm just tipping that in like that, and so that they're covered. It's one way of using up some of the old compost that you have when you're planting lots of seeds. I also have some old bedding from when I had chickens. That can go in there. That is it's old wood chippings, just free wood fibre bedding. So that can go in. So it's a nice mix of something that will remain dry but cover up the tubers. So hopefully if they do get any damp through the winter, then it will be absorbed by the soil and the wood chippings before it getting absorbed into the tubers. That's the plan. So this is what I've done previously. I haven't used this bedding before. I've used sand, I've used all sorts, but they've always been covered up, which they weren't last year. So let me continue and get everything covered up. Okay, so we have 3 boxes that have been covered up and ready to go, and we have this 4th box as an experiment. It is the urchin, which I'm not that bothered about keeping. I was going to throw it away, but I just can't bring myself at the moment to throw away good plants. I think I might gift them to somebody next year and see whether they want them. That might make me feel a bit better about it. But I am going to leave them exposed. But these are all covered in the same weight, and then I'll see whether they grow. And then if survive the winter in this place that I'm going to store it like that, then it makes it so much easier for storing, which is why I tried it the other day. But I also changed location last winter, so maybe that was the key clincher. So we'll see how it goes. Those 3 are safely tucked in for bed, and this one is a little bit exposed, and we'll see what happens. So there we have it. They're all packed away nicely in the barn, safe for the winter. The second one down contains the urchin tubers, and so I have wrapped those in paper but not the compost. So that's me done for the winter for the Dahlias. That's how I do it. Obviously there are a million and one ways of doing this, and it's just whatever works best for you, but they do need to be protected, dry and frost free. If you do all of that, that should hopefully see you through the winter. Let me know in the comments below if you do something different, if you've experimented with other things. I'm open to new ideas. Until next time, happy gardening.